1997. The resolution was backed by 141 countries, and it also demands that Russia immediately withdraws its forces from Ukraine.
Trying to avoid, because they know full well that the Ukrainians are going to defend not only their neighborhood, they're going to defend every block, and they're going to defend the buildings, and it'll be quite an urban fight. And the Russians have enough experience to know that an urban fight it takes a lot of troops to execute it. It's close combat. It's the most dangerous type of combat, because the defenders obviously have plenty of places to hide with all the buildings and facilities there. They just provide natural cover and concealment as much as fighting positions do outside of the city. So yeah, this is an enormous challenge. Kherson, close to the coast, they've taken in the south, and they're going to move from there to Odessa, and that's a major port city in the south, and it's reflected on the map you have on the screen here. Odessa, right to the left of the red area there, and that way they'll and that's a significant objective when they achieve that, because they will have cut off Ukraine's ability to receive supplies from the sea, and certainly that has been the way that their economy flourishes with their exports, certainly using mostly seaborne cargo ships, taking care of it as the breadbasket of Europe, certainly. So that's what's unfolding before our eyes. It's very slow. They brought some of this on themselves, but you got to give credit also to what the Ukrainian resistance is certainly doing to them.
All right. Russia's military claims to have taken control of the port city of Kherson, with pictures showing Russian vehicles rolling through the streets. And Ukraine's emerging 1,000 civilians have been killed. The Russian Defense Ministry, meanwhile, says nearly 500 of their soldiers have been killed, but Ukraine disputes that figure and says it's closer to 7,000.
General Assembly arguing that Russian aggression is a violation of the UN Charter, as well as a deadly existential threat.
They have come to the Ukrainian soil not only to kill some of us, not only to shift our course and priorities. They have come to deprive Ukraine of the very right to exist.
Here, Russia has no veto power, just the power to make its case, even in the face of enormous opposition.
Your refusal to support today's draft resolution is a vote for a peaceful Ukraine, free from radicalism and neo-Nazism.
In the end, only 4 member states sided with the Russians, 141 voting in favor of the resolution, deploring the military operation.
Today, the world has spoken with a clear, united voice. Together, the vast majority of the world has condemned Russia's unprovoked, unjustified, unconscionable war. We have deplored Belarus for allowing its territory to be used to facilitate this aggression.
35 countries abstained from voting, among them China, India, and South Africa.
The resolution that we have considered today does not create an environment conducive for diplomacy, dialogue, and mediation.
However, the United Arab Emirates, which had abstained on a similar resolution in the Security Council, came out in favor.
Right now, we recognize that this resolution adopted here today is a necessary signal of where we need to be going. Resigning ourselves to a cycle of perpetual violence and sanctions that only adds to the suffering of civilians diminishes us all.
Under international law, matters of peace and security are the purview of the Security Council, but the Council invoked a rarely used provision of the UN Charter to get around the Russian veto and call for this special emergency session of the General Assembly. Its outcome, according to sponsors, shows Russia's isolation on the international stage. Kristen Salumi, Al Jazeera, the United Nations.
Thank you.
Outside the barracks, the joy of a family reunited, even though it's just for a few minutes. 8-year-old Timothy carrying prosthetic spare parts for his father, who likes to be called Sailor.
Blown by the mine, Russian mine.
Sailor lost his left leg 2 years ago when he was in the Ukrainian Marines. He rejoined the army a few days ago. Timothy is not fully aware of the scale of the Russian onslaught because his mother doesn't let him watch the news.
I didn't feel comfortable at first, especially sleeping in the corridor, but I'm getting used to it. School stopped, so now I spend my days in the corridor doing nothing, watching videos on the phone and reading books sometimes. But today, we will go to help the volunteers.
Civilians from all walks of life are pitching in, supporting soldiers like Timothy's father and providing assistance to Ukrainians fleeing Kharkiv or southern Ukraine. The volunteers are frantic as they grasp the enormity of the Russian assault on their country. Among them, Natalia. She usually manages a shoe company, but is now putting together kits containing basic necessities.
People need everything. Clothes, hygiene goods, shaving kits, toothpaste, and toothbrushes. They're coming here without anything. Their homes are destroyed, so all they have is the clothes they're wearing.
Dnipro has so far remained safe, but this city is bracing itself. Public shelters are being prepared all over the city. This is the underground of a movie theater that was built in the 1950s when Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, and already then it was designated as a bomb shelter. During that Cold War era, the stated threat was from Western powers. It's stuffy with poor ventilation, but it will have to do. The city is under a night curfew. Sailor tells me it's to prevent the possibility of Russian agents carrying out acts of subversion. And despite his handicap, he says he will fight to the bitter end. He believes Russia's ambitions are far greater than Ukraine.
If you look at history, starting from Transnistria in Moldova, Georgia, and then Donbass, he is protecting his borders with the help of the so-called self-proclaimed republics. I have to protect my home and my family because people like me have little chance to survive in the case of a Russian invasion here.
Many in Dnipro are wondering what President Vladimir Putin's plans are for the city. With the Russian army advancing from the south and north, many believe the quiet they have now could soon be broken. Hodab Hamid, Al Jazeera, Dnipro.
12,500. Wastelands of destruction.
God forbid, if we are no more, then Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia will be next. Then Moldova, Georgia, Poland, and so on. They will march to the Berlin Wall. Believe me.
It's the same story of destruction in southern Ukraine. Large parts of the port city of Mariupol are being shelled. Russian forces are slowly overwhelming the people here. And resistance, though noble, is futile in the city of Kherson, conquered by Russian tanks, the first major urban area to fall in this war. But there's no bigger prize than the capital Kyiv. An explosion overnight rocks the railway station. Debris from a Russian cruise missile shot out of the sky. It's unclear how many were injured. By day, the capital is being abandoned. These cars have been dumped outside the railway station as thousands flee.
It is pretty much deserted here. A couple of people out for a stroll.
And this is why. Not far from Kyiv, a column of heavy Russian armor inches closer to the capital, waiting for Vladimir Putin's order to strike.
The year. And as long as they will be prevailing in the year, it's going to be still very hard for the Ukrainians to hold the lines, despite the fact that morally they are in very strong position right now.
And what's the mood there in Georgia? How nervously are people watching what's happening in Ukraine right now?
Georgian nation is and has been very closely watching the developments in Ukraine for several reasons. First and foremost, in aid, Ukrainian president has been standing at Rustaveli Avenue in the middle of Tbilisi, actually trying to support the Georgian government for that time in that very deep-scale crisis. And we also understand, Georgian people also understand that whatever happens in Ukraine will directly affect on our future as well. So we are extremely supportive. We are largely supportive to the Ukrainian nation in these very tough times.
It's been good to talk to you, so many thanks indeed.
And that's a difficult question. But what I would expect him to do is to liaise with a range of actors, from the Prosecutor General in Ukraine to civil society actors, to open source experts, to military analysts, to international criminal lawyers like myself, and focus in on certain incidents which are the most damaging, which are the most dangerous, and which must be prioritised.
You've just given me a long list of examples there, and I do want...
North from Crimea. Well, let's show you what's happening in Mariupol. It's had hours of sustained shelling, hundreds of people are feared dead. It's still under Ukrainian control, but Russian troops surround it. Electricity, water and heat supplies have been cut. The authorities say they are hindering food supplies, they're blocking us like Leningrad. That's a reference to the deadly Nazi siege of St. Petersburg.